in the previous video, you have learned about the communication network that consists of communication network and group and team, organizational communication network, and the last one is external network. In this video, you will learn about the importance of information technology in the communication process. So basically, growing number of managers are finding that the technology on which the World Wide Web and Internet are based has enabled them to improve communication within their own organization. So this manager use this technology to share information within their own company or organization through company network that is called as intranet. Okay, so this intranet allow employee to have many kind of information at their fingertips. Intranet can be accessed with different kind of computers so that all members of the organization can be linked together. So intranet are protected from unwanted intrusions by firewall security system that asks user to provide password and other identification before they are allowed access. So the advantage of intranet lies in their versatility as a communication medium. Another thing that will help people in the organization to communicate is known as groupware. So groupware is computer software that enable member of group and team to share information with one another to improve their communication and performance. So in some organization, managers have had succeed in introducing groupware into the organization. However, in other organizations, managers have encountered considerable resistance or problem to groupware. So even in organization where the introduction of groupware has been successful, some employee resist to use the groupware. Why? Because employee are likely to resist because they don't want to have difficult time in implementing such technique in order to communicate with each other. Because they more prefer to use the traditional technique to communicate with people in the organization. Talking about communication, please bear in mind, there are many potential barriers to effective communication. For example, message in the communication process can be unclear, incomplete, or difficult to understand, or message sent over in the communication process is inappropriate or using the inappropriate medium. Message with no provision for feedback, or message that are received but ignored by the receiver. So these are the potential barriers to effective communication. So as managers, you are not required to be only a good sender, but you also required to be a good receiver. So in terms of communication process, these are the communication skills for manager as sender of the communication process. So what are the 7 communication skills for manager as sender of message? Is send message that are clear and complete. Okay, manager need to encode message in symbols that the receiver understand. Then the manager select a medium that is appropriate for the message. Then the manager need to select a medium that the receiver monitor. The manager also need to avoid filtering and information distortion. Then the manager need to ensure that a feedback mechanism is built into message. And the last one, the manager need to provide accurate information to ensure that misleading rumors are not spread. The important thing for a manager when he or she become the sender of message, manager needs to bear in mind, when they want to encode message, they should use symbols or language that the receiver or the potential receiver, the subordinate, understand. Especially, this refers to jargon. Jargon is basically specialized language that member of an occupation, group, or organization develop to facilitate communication among themselves. Should never be used when communicating with people outside the occupation, group, or organization. So When you want to convey message to your subordinate in the organization, usually you will use jargon, the words that the words that are familiar by your subordinate. Do not use the same jargon to people outside the organization that is not related to your organization because they will not understand the message. As I mentioned just now, managers should not only have communication skill as sender. Okay, so you as manager should also have communication skill for as receiver. Okay, who receive the message. So what are the communication skill that required by manager as receiver? The first one is pay attention. Okay, so as a receiver, you need to pay attention to the sender message. Because of their multiple roles and tasks, managers are often overloaded and forced to think about several things at once. To be effective, however, managers should always pay attention to message they receive, no matter how busy they are. Second communication skill is to be a good listener. Okay, manager should refrain from interrupting sender in the middle of a message so that sender do not lose their train of thought and manager do not jump to conclusion based on incomplete information. That's why you need to be a good listener. Manager should maintain eye contact with sender so that sender feel their listener are paying attention. After receiving a message, manager should ask to clarify point of ambiguity or confusion. The manager should paraphrase point that sent by the sender that are important, complex, or open to alternative interpretation. And the last but not least, okay, the third communication skill for manager as receiver is known as be empathic. The manager should be empathic. Okay, so this is known by receiver are empathic when they try to understand how the sender feel and try to interpret a message from the sender perspective rather than viewing the message from only their own point of view. So you try to interpret the message sent by the sender by your subordinate based on the sender perspective. Do not use your own perspective to give feedback. That is known as be empathic. Okay, student, we have reached the end of communication chapter. Please view all the video as the lecture process for this week. I know that our lecture medium for this chapter is not effective enough because we do not have face-to-face interaction and I am unable to have direct feedback and you are unable to ask directly during the lecture process. And this is not a good communication, guys. Okay, but please, if you have any question, ask in the Telegram group or PM me personally for the reply and feedback. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and stay safe everyone.